Halacha Daled. Dafnoi Shoyet Vigaga Sukkah. Walls that were attached to the roof of the sukkah, V'lo Magiyas La'oretz. In other words, they're hanging from the roof and not from the ground up. So let's go to the Peirush. Walls of a sukkah that were dvukos, that were attached to the roof, and they were not reaching the ground. If they were above the ground 3 tvochim, they're apostle. Less than that, they're kosher. Now, the mechitzas have to reach the ground, or within 3 tvochim of the ground, because that's considered like reaching the ground. If the daphnes were on the ground, but they didn't go all the way up to the schach. As long as they are high, 10 tvochim, 10 tvochim, even if they're many amos away from the gag, it's kosher. The stipulation that they should be underneath the roof, which means the edge of the schach, but they don't have to reach the schach. So Noach and the Magad Mishnah cite the Mishnah in Sukkah 16a that somebody lowers down from above to below the walls if they do not reach within 3 tvochim of the ground, it's postal. If when he lowers it down, it's more than 3 tvochim of the ground, it's postal. But if it goes from the ground up, if it's 10 tvochim high, it's kosher. He says, just like that, from the bottom to the above, it's 10 tvochim. So too, if it has 10 tvochim down from the schach, even though it doesn't go to the ground, it's kosher. But the halacha is that it's not kosher unless it sits on the ground. Rabbeinu Manoach cites in the Gemara, according to Rabbi Yossi, Mechitza Tluyim Materes. According to Rabbi Yossi, who said that it's a good from the top, because there's a concept of if a hanging partition is considered a partition. Halacha, it's only with regard to Shabbos, which we use it to be able to take water from a river, so they would hang from a porch or from a mechitzas 10 tvochim down, and they would lower through the hole formed within the porch to the water and bring it up, and that would be like a concept of having 4 walls. That there's a halacha l'moshe b'sinai good ochus, that we view the walls as extending all the way down to the water itself, even though it's hanging in the air. But this halacha is only said; it was not said by sukkah. So you see that Daphne's sukkah had, when we have halacha l'moshe b'sinai 2 walls, the third wall, you don't say this concept of going down or up. And when it's 10 tvochim, when it is a wall already from the ground, you say good asik, that it goes up, that it projects upward. In a sense, you can, and it's as if you extend the wall upwards, and therefore it reaches the schach, and that's what the Rambam's opinion is. Rabbeinu Manoach cites that of Nutronoi going, and the Baal Halochas also agree that, like the Rachomim, and because the rule is when you have many, you have Yossi is only one, Yochad v'Rabim, you have one against many, the halacha is like the many. Others disagree, and many disagree with Rabbi Yossi. And Rabbi Amam and Rabbeinu Hanan Barif agree, have the opinion according to Rabbi Yossi, because usually we have Rabbi Yossi, when he's mentioned in Mishnah, he is cited as someone who was very, very exact, and whatever he had accepted from his rabbis he gave over, and therefore he's a unique individual, and the halacha is according to him. Now, the Rae Gann paskins like the Rabbanon, and that would seem to be the logic, because it's an individual and the many. The Gemara says you don't say when the mechitza is hanging good ochis, only when it comes to what? To water. As we cited above, that's a special halacha regarding Shabbos. The Agos Maimonides cites poskim like the Tanakh, And the Rabbanon and Rabbeinu Aviezer Ezri passing like Rabbi Yossi. The Rosh too cited Rabbi Toigoy, Rabbi Nat Hu Noi Goin, and the Ramban, Rabbi Shai, Varitz Geis, and the Riv all agree with that the halacha is like the majority. Rambam, Rabbi Hananel, Rabbi Paskin, Rabbi Yossi again because he's a special, unique person to know who was exact. The two on Shulchan Aruch only cite the Rambam. The Mishnah Berurah explains that that the reason why it's possible is even if the walls are 10 tefachim that are hanging down, since goats can go underneath it, therefore it's not considered a wall with regard to sukkah. And there's a question in the Achronim that not all the Rishonim are of the opinion that a sukkah is kosher is because good osik. Because the walls are going up. The Bnei Yeshua makes you aware that you have to say good osik mechitzas by sukkah. Otherwise, when they're 10 tefachim and they don't get to the schach, sukkah should be possible because the walls have to reach the schach. So writes the Ritzvah. But the Rae Gann cites that the Ran is of the opinion we don't say good osik mechitzas, and he says therefore why if the mechitzah starts from the ground and it doesn't reach the schach, the sukkah is kosher. Why should it be kosher? And he answers that according to the Ran, you don't need a mechitzah to come to the sukkah. You just have to have mechitzah to the schach. It just has to have the sukkah has to have 3 walls that have 3 tefachim high. If the Rambam says Hilchos Sukkah min adoivin shloisha tefachim psula, if he separated the roof, the schach, from the wall 3 tefachim, it's possible because it's not loved. Less pos mikam kshera. We learned that even if it's higher, the sukkah is kosher. Here we're talking about where it's distant. In other words, it's not above. It's away from the point directly below it. The Magen Mishnah cites a Mishnah in Sukkah that in 17, where if you separate the Sukkah from the walls 3 tefachim, it's possible. Amen Manoach explains that we're talking in length or width. That the length of the Sukkah is from north to south, 13 tefachim, and he only covered 10 of the 13, and he left 3 tefachim here. Sukkah is possible. Less than 3 it's kosher because we say love it. It's as if the schach is reaching the other wall. Rabbeinu Manoach cites from Rashi in Sukkah Yud Zayin the din doiven akuma. Now, so according to this first pshat, we mentioned that there's a concept that it's as if the schach is now covering everything, even though it's attached all the way across. There's a din by Sukkah of doiven akuma where the wall is crooked, and if the wall is crooked, then it's Halacha Moshe Sinai that we consider the schach as part of the wall. That if the sukkah was 10 amas and he made schach kosher on a part of it, and part of it was schach posul, if the distance between the wall, the schach kosher, is less than daled amas, it's kosher, because you say doiven akuma, and we look at it that the schach is a continuation of the wall, and the wall bent till the roof. I'm not exactly sure why he says that the doiven is a continuation of the schach. Technically, you should say the wall continues over into the roof and becomes part of the wall. And therefore, but if it's ear, it's not daled amis, but it's only the Gimel Tvochem. Rashi explains why is ear worse than an open space worse than a crooked wall, because even akuma, which basically means a crooked wall, you say only when you consider as if the wall bent and became part of the doifen. In other words, even though you see, I assume Rashi's explanation here means that it, you see it as if the schach is bending from the wall, even though it's going on the same level as the wall. By the ear, you can say that there's some sort of a connection to the schach because there's nothing there. The halacha of a crooked wall only causes this. Makes the schach posel like a part of the wall. Whatever's posel becomes part of the wall. The schach has half kosher and half posel, but the part that's posel, it becomes part of the wall, and we don't look at it as schach. And it's as if the wall has bent. Therefore, till 3-4 amas is not possible. But when it's ear, there's not. You can't talk about ear bending. There's a gap. Once there's a gap, it's possible. And the Rambam says in Perek Hey, Halacha Yudal, when we get there, that we see even akuma, we see the crooked wall as if the wall bent, and the area that's schach posel becomes part of the wall. So Rashi says the schach becomes part of the wall. He means the schach posel becomes part of the wall. But here in the Rambam would seem that we consider the wall as if the schach came to be part of the wall, and the Kesef Mishnah cites this as a difference to say that when there's less than 3 tvachim, that ear space is part of the schach and not part of the wall, which is not the case by the doifen, where that schach posel is part of the wall. Now, here the Rambam just says that the roof was distant from the wall 3 tvachim from the side. In Perek Hey Halacha Chov, he writes that 3 tvachim of ear is posel. It doesn't matter whether it's from the wall to the schach or even in the middle of the sukkah. Now, Goy's Maimonides brings to the Yerushalmi that you can't, even if it's less than 3 tvachim, you can't sleep under that area which is open, even though the sukkah is kosher. Yishochonoch Baskins. Here, that's whether it's by a big sukkah or a small sukkah, it doesn't make a difference. Whether it's in the middle of the sukkah or on the sides, 3 tvachim pasels. Less than 3 is okay, and it's part of the schach. To make it a kosher sukkah, we'll turn the page, and it becomes part of the 7 tvachim. But you don't sleep under that area. The Halacha adds that you can't eat underneath it. So I'm not exactly sure. So it seems, this is interesting here. Here you have a difference between eating and drinking, eating and sleeping, as opposed to sitting. Obviously, you need 7 tvachim because that's the minimum you can sit in. So even though you're considered inside the sukkah, but your head has to be eating, the table where you're eating from would have to be the side that doesn't have the opening over it. And when you sleep, you have to sleep on that side too. So you have a situation where the body has to be within the 7x7, yet the schach is only 4, and it's a kosher sukkah. Now, the Rambam continues, Tola machitza shegoy v'dalid u'mashu be'emtza. If he hung a wall that was 4 tvachim, and beporos misomach la'oretz, and he a little bit he had in middle. In other words, he had a machitza that was 4 tvachim, and it's 3 tvachim from the ground, and it's 3 tvachim le'somach la'gag harezek shera. In other words, you have a 10 tvachim high. The wall has to be right, and you have 4 tvachim. So if you have 4 tvachim from the ground, 3 tvachim from the ground, so now I have 7 tvachim. But the wall has to be how high? Has to be 10. So you have to make, if the schach is at the height of 10 tvachim, So it's considered as if it's reaching the schach, and so you have it reaching the ground, reaching the schach. In the middle, you only have a wall of 4 tvochim. Rabbeinu Manoach explains it's considered 10 tvochim high. Just he didn't do the mechitza from the karka to the gag, but he placed the mechitza and he hung it. He basically explains it the way we just explained it, that there was an opening of 10 tvochim from the ground till the schach, and he placed it in the middle, and there's 3 tvochim below it, which is loved, and there's 3 tvochim above it to the schach, which is loved, and therefore you have 10 tvochim. The Magen Mishnah cites the source as Sukkah 16b. Avimi says, Machon Nesher HaGadol means a stick of 4 tvochim, and a little bit more. It's okay by a sukkah to make a wall because it's less than 3 from the ground and 3 from the above, and anything that less than 3 is considered as if it's attached. Again, the same way that Rabbeinu Manoach explained it. And the Gemara questions, obviously this is Porshut, that you have 10 tvochim, and he explains that they're letting us know a thought that you can say loved in both directions. I might think it's only one area you can say loved. Not only below, but also above also. In other words, I might say you need 7 tvochim, either above, and 3 tvochim can be above or below. So the din is that it's kosher in both directions. And they ask a question from a brisa, that if you have a wall of 7 tvochim and a little bit, that's okay. And according to what we just said, it should be enough 4 tvochim. Why is it mentioned 7? And the answer that there we're talking with the schach is more than 10 tvochim above it is more than 10 tvochim above the ground. So if you have 3 empty tvochim from the ground till the board, and with the board you only have 7 tvochim, and there's no lover to the schach. Rabbeinu Manoach explains the gag is too high from the stick, from this piece of board. Therefore, you have to put in. Then you need 7 tvochim and a little bit, and therefore, if it's within 3 tvochim of the ground, you have a wall of 10. And then we don't care about how high above that 10 tvochim the schach is, because we say good ochas mechitzas. Once it's a mechitza and it has 10 tvochim, it's called a mechitza. Then it goes up till the schach. The Magen Mishnah cites 2 gesoyes in the Gemara. The first one is the Gesag Oinim, and lets us know that you let the walls go down from above to below. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Geyes explains that the Mishnah is of the opinion that's only b'di'evet. But l'chatchila you can't do that, and it lets us know that even l'chatchila you do it from above to below, but not from below to above. In other words, the idea is, again, as we said, that we extend it from the ground up, but not from the ceiling down. The Magen Mishnah explains that that's only when the sukkah is not above 13 tvochim. Therefore, the 7 tvochim is next to the ground, 3 tvochim. If we'll explain that the Mishnah is talking about that it's more than 13 tvochim, so then it's obviously the piece of wood, which is 7 tvochim, if you put it in a space of 13 tvochim, so you have 7 and 6 is 13 tvochim, and then you'll have more than 3 tvochim below and 3 tvochim above. And the Mishnah is like Rabbi Yossi, who is the opinion that a sukkah is kosher always, even if the mechitza which is 10 tvochim, is distant from the ground. And therefore, if it's close to the schach, according to Rabbi Yossi, If it's within 3 tefachim of the schach and you have 7 tefachim, so then you've got 10 tefachim of a wall, even though it's more than 3 tefachim above the ground because the height is 20 tefachim from the ground. But we don't paskin like him, and it would seem from the text of Rashi, which we don't have, he cites the text of Rashi, that you can only extend walls from below above, but not from above below. And our gears in Rashi is Mishal Shlim Dafnis V'Lamalo Lamato. In any case, it doesn't make a difference as far as the wording, but basically it has to start from the ground up as opposed to from the roof down. The Maggid Mishnah explains that according to Rashi, that you can, he's letting us know that you can make the walls from below to above, that we consider the wall, as long as it's 10 tefachim, going upwards, and we don't care that it's very distant from the roof. And even though there's 10 tefachim only because of the lovet at the bottom of the piece of wood that's 7 tefachim long, still the wall permits him to, even though it doesn't reach the schach. He adds that the Rambam doesn't mention by a big sukkah we say lovet lamato, because he wrote that you can say shnei levudim b'mechitza if you have 4 tefachim and a little bit, so you can have it 3 tefachim above the ground. As long as it's within 3 tefachim of the schach, it's okay. And therefore, for sure, you definitely say love it below. The Lechem Mishnah explains the Ritz Geyus, like the Rosh and Rashi, according to the text of the Gaonim, that you do it from above to below like Rabbi Yossi, and not the way we just explained that it goes from the bottom to above. And this has to do with the paskin like Rabbi Yossi or the Chachomim, but all the Achronim paskin like the Chachomim. Shulchan Aruch paskins, if the davnos were 7 tefachim and a little bit, and he put him within 3 tefachim of the ground, it's kosher, even if the roof is very high. And the Mishnah Berurah explains, we say love it, and it's as if it was close. Thus we find we have a mechitza v'asora tefachim, and it helps also on the roof, which is very distant, because we say good osig mechitzas, and it's considered that the mechitzas reach the schach. The mechaber good osig means that once you have a wall, it continues upwards automatically. The mechaber adds, but the schach has to be overhead, directly overhead. Even if it's not directly, but it has to be within 3 tefachim of the direct line. And within 3 we say love it, as if the wall is close to the schach, because you have less than 3 tefachim of air, and if it's not 10 tefachim high, even meaning if the schach is not more than 10 tefachim above the ground, even if it only has 4 tefachim, you don't need 7 tefachim anymore, then it's kosher, because we put it in the middle, and we need 3 tefachim underneath it, 3 tefachim above it to the schach, and we have a mechitz of 10 tefachim, and we say love it in both directions. But if the ceiling, the schach is more than 10 tefachim from the ground, then if you only have a piece of this 4 tefachim, you have a problem, because it's not called a mechitza. You need to have 2 mechitzas.